Good morning, students. Welcome to English literature class. So let's begin with today Treasure Trove short stories. So today we'll do story A Face in the Dark. So before moving to the story, let's read something about the author. So name of the author is Ruskin Bond. He was born in Kosoli on 19th May 1934. So children, he is an icon among Indian writers. His wide array of short stories, novels, essays, poems, travelogues, and articles in newspapers and magazines have inspired many aspiring writers. He has presented a variety in his writing, ranging from ghost stories to odes to nature to love stories. So, children, he was awarded the Padma Shri in 1999 for his contribution to children's literature and Padma Bhushan in 2014. He now lives with his adopted family near Missouri. So now let's come to the introduction to the story. So now I'll begin with the introduction of the story. So introduction to the story is, children, A Face in the Dark. It is a short story set on a dark, windy night. Mr. Oliver, a teacher, was walking through the pine forest on his way back to school after an evening walk at Shimla Bazaar. On the way, he came across a weeping boy who had no face but a round, smooth head without eyes, ears, nose, or mouth. Horrified, Mr. Oliver ran from there and bumped into a watchman who also had no face, like the faceless boy. So next is, children, plot. What does plot means? It is a sequence of the events in the play. So these are the sequence of the events which took place in the play. So first of all, we'll come to know that Mr. Oliver was returning to his school late one night. Next event is, on his way, he found a boy sitting alone on a rock and weeping. Third, Mr. Oliver asked him to look up. Then the boy looked up. His face had no eyes, ears, nose, or mouth. Then Mr. Oliver ran from there and bumped into a watchman. Next, the watchman was faceless like the boy. So children, now let's move to the story. Okay, now children, that is the short story, or that's the summary which I'll tell you now. In the story, Mr. Oliver, he is the protagonist. He is an Anglo-Indian teacher in the English public school at Shimla, which is 3 miles distance from the Shimla Bazaar. The school is often referred as Eton of the East because it is synonymous with quality, elite education. Mr. Oliver is a rational and mentally strong person. He does not easily give way to nervousness and imagination. He usually goes out after school to the Shimla market and returns back in the evening. So children, one day while Mr. Oliver was returning from Shimla, he got quite late and he decides to take a shortcut through the pine forests. Carrying his torch, he moves on briskly. Suddenly he comes across a weeping boy who was sitting with his hands covering his face. As per his duty as a teacher, he asked the child the reason for crying. Getting closer, he repeats the question. The boy lifted his face and the teacher fills with horror to find that the boy had no features, no eyes, no mouth, no ear. Terror-stricken, Mr. Oliver runs towards his school. On the way, he encounters a watchman swinging a lantern. On seeing him running, the watchman asks him what the reason was. Mr. Oliver tells him that he saw a boy with no face. The watchman then asks him if the boy looked like his, and he raises his lantern to the face. To Mr. Oliver's horror, the watchman too had no face, no eyes, no ears, and no features. That moment, the wind blew and the lamp went out. The story ends with a sense of ambiguity, leaving the readers to think whether it were actually ghosts or some prank played upon by his students, upon the teacher by the students. So children, now theme. What is the theme of the story? The story, A Face in the Dark, it exhibits Bond's interest in the supernatural. It deals with the paranormal, depicting the story of a school teacher who, while returning from the Simla Bazaar, takes a shortcut through the forest and encounters a faceless sweeping boy. So this the theme of the story is the fear and the supernatural. So next, moving to that is the heading of the story appropriate or it's apt for this one? So the title of the story is very appropriate as it suggests to the reader a theme which is got dark or paranormal connotations. So the why it is appropriate, children, why it's apt for that? The story revolves around Mr. Oliver and a strange and frightening encounter with a faceless boy in the airy forest in the darkness of the night. Mr. Oliver stumbles into a faceless watchman and he runs towards the school. So the emphasis on his strange experience with people who are weird in the sense they have no face. These are supernatural experiences, extensions maybe of Mr. Oliver's subconscious fears. Thank you.